Tēnā koutou katoa, no mai, haere mai. Welcome everyone to today's webinar on future focused skills for Māori and Pasifika-owned businesses. Ko Catherine Hall tōku ingoa. I'm the Executive Director at ConCOVE Tūhura, and I'm really pleased to be hosting this important kōrero with you all. Through ConCOVE's contestable fund process, Amotai approached us with this project, and we were delighted to support the mahi. Today you'll be hearing more about this work, what it means for Māori and Pacific businesses in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Remember, you can post questions in the chat and we will respond to you through the webinar or at the end. And the webinar is being recorded and will be available from both ConCOVE's site and via Amotai following the event. To get us started and to ground us in the whakapapa of this important research, I'm going to hand over to Anna Jane Edwards, the manukura of Amotai, where this kaupapa originally began. Welcome.
Tēnā koe, Catherine. Me karakia tātou. Amotai he awai, amotai he kawenga. Amotai e whiwhinga, amotai e raunga. He wake ke noa ki te rangi, he moane ke noa ki te whenua. Haumi e, hui e, taiki e. I'll just quickly let you know what that tauparapara is. It's a part of our Amotai karakia, and it translates to the ocean swells as part of the currents. The ocean swells as a carrier. The ocean swells as a pathway to acquisition. The ocean swells as a pathway to prosperity. And that's important to us because it talks to the Pacific Ocean being the thing that connects us all, and that the swell of the tide is the thing that can bring us all to prosperity. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank you, Catherine and ConCOVE, for backing this research with us and Poutama, ensuring that the construction and infrastructure sector is ready and able to unlock and utilise new technologies and get businesses ready for what the future looks like by enabling Māori and Pasifika businesses to use all of their creativity and innovation that they bring to this space. And we have a really large presence here. At Amotai, we have 2,500 Māori and Pasifika-owned businesses, and 45% of those businesses are in the construction and infrastructure sector. So we care deeply about how the sector supports Māori and Pasifika businesses to grow, and equally how Māori and Pasifika businesses are able to contribute to the growth of not only the sector, but the economy as a whole. We're really interested in this work because of the economic, cultural, social, and environmental outcomes that you can get through working with Māori and Pasifika businesses. So that's why we were really keen to do this work and look at what future skills we could unlock through the sector. We know our businesses excel at the social, cultural, and tai ao mahi, but it's this future forecasting that this research helps us to pinpoint. We're really excited to be working with ConCOVE and to enable this mahi to grow, and about the partnership that we've got with our friends at Poutama Trust. So thanks, Catherine. That's enough from me.
Thanks, Anna. So we were particularly interested in this work, not only because of the intersection of digital technology and environmental sustainability and future opportunities for two of our priority groups, but also because we've been working internationally on a UNESCO Univoc project that looked at the impacts of greening, migration and digitisation on vocational education and construction. So this really nicely aligns with that work. Plus, we've also had emerging themes coming through other projects that we've run over the last 3 years, and that's the ability to embrace and interact with digital technology is going to be key for the future, and we're really not doing that very well in the construction and infrastructure sector yet. So there's a lot of challenge there, and really important to think about this work guiding some of that future vocational education opportunities. We're going to head now to some introductions, and thank you, Anna, for introducing yourself earlier. I'm going to ask Esther to introduce yourself and then pass to our panellists online.
Kia ora koutou, ko Esther Craft tōku ingoa. I'm a Senior Project Manager with Height Project Management, born and raised in Tamaki, Makaurau, and really excited to work on this project with the team. It's a cause that's really close to our heart and some really important mahi. So thanks. I'll pass over to Koro.
Tēnā koe, Esther. Nau mai haere mai I tēnei whānau. Ko Waio, ko Koro Dickinson tako ingoa, he uria hau no nā te kanumi ki te Wairoa, a kaitahu, a Kātima Moe hoki. Hei tupu aki au I Waihōpai, engari o Tāmaki Makaurau and Naenei. he kai whakahaere mātua mā Poutama Trust. It's great to be here and welcome to all of you. My name is Koro Dickinson. I'm the CEO of Poutama Trust. Pleasure to be here partnering with both ConCOVE and Amotai to deliver the insights of this report that we think be really meaningful, and hopefully all of you can leverage to the best of your ability about the pathways forward for Māori and Pasifika businesses in the green constructive future. And I'd like to hand it over to Nick. Kia ora, Nick.
Nā koe koro. Nick Leggett is my name. I'm the Chief Executive of Infrastructure New Zealand, born, raised and still live in Puridoa. And Infrastructure New Zealand is the industry body that works across Aotearoa, New Zealand, to talk about the benefits of infrastructure investment and ensure that we get all the right ingredients into the mix, which of course at its core is people. We've got an ongoing challenge, and this report will, I think, gives us some really firm evidence around the importance of not just investing in workforce, but actually some of the how we get there and some of the evolving technologies that we need to be involved in as a sector. Kia ora.
Thanks very much. And thanks to Koro and Nick for joining us online today, for joining us in the studio. So we're going to get into the research now, and I'm going to pass to Esther, who's going to take us through the insights. What did you learn, Esther, in undertaking this research?
Perfect. Thanks, Catherine. So I have 5 minutes to talk to you about the research. So I'm going to be giving you an overview, but what I really encourage you to do, if you haven't already, is to have a look through the full report. As we mentioned, our goal for this project was to identify opportunities for Māori and Pasifika businesses to capitalise on emerging green construction technologies. To do this, we started with a range of stakeholder interviews and did some desktop research. And the idea of that was to develop a really good long list of all of the potential opportunities in this space. Our long list ended up with 54 opportunities, and they really fell into 4 key categories. So we had smart and digital technologies, which covered things like AI, Internet of Things, robotics, digital twins, augmented reality, all that really juicy digital technology. Then we had green construction, which focused more on those low-impact building methods and materials. Energy efficiency and resource conservation, so clean energy systems, efficient building design, water-saving technologies, and advanced energy storage solutions. And our 4th category was circular economy, so looking for opportunities to minimise waste through reuse and recycling of construction materials. The long list was really a means to an end and helping us identify those key opportunities for our shortlist, but it became a valuable resource in itself, which we've provided in the report if people are interested in reading through that. But we did need to narrow down, so we used 5 key criteria to narrow down our focus areas. It was really, really important that these opportunities were well linked to the existing capacity and capability of Māori and Pacific industries. We want our Pākehī to be ready to embrace these opportunities. So we really had to look at where these businesses are at the moment. So we know that businesses, Māori and Pasifika businesses, tend to be on the smaller side, with 90% having just 1 to 5 employees. So it provides agility, but also has challenges like limits to capital and larger contracts. So we also wanted to be able to meet existing or future demand, so that there are some opportunities, achievable entry cost. The opportunities also had to be suitable for vocational training and on-the-job upskilling. And of course, we really wanted to have those future-proofed, highly skilled job opportunities for our kaimahi. Each of the long list opportunities were rated against these criteria, and we landed with 4, which were trenchless technology, building information modelling for subcontractors, energy retrofits for commercial buildings, and the installation of renewable energy resources. So I'll talk you really briefly through some of these, but again, I do encourage you to read the report. Our first opportunity was trenchless technology. So for those of you who are unaware, the term trenchless technology refers to a no-dig civil engineering process for the installation, replacement or renewal of underground utilities. Things like water mains, stormwater, sewers, gas mains, etc. Includes clever things like robotic pipe condition diagnosis, which provides really precise data to help inform our infrastructure prioritization. These methods generate minimal or no disruption to the surface, which makes it really ideal for working in environmentally sensitive areas or urban areas with major roads, railways, etc. It has some great benefits, including reducing carbon emissions and also in the right scenarios, generating cost savings compared to traditional open trench methods, which really gives businesses with these skills a clear competitive advantage. We're seeing globally that the trenchless pipe repair market is actually showing strong growth and expected to continue growing at around 6.7% per annum. And here in Aotearoa, our demand's being driven by quite a significant Three Waters infrastructure deficit, which has been estimated to require $120 to $180 billion of investment over the next 30 years. So that's some really great opportunities there. We know that Māori and Pasifika businesses are strongly represented in the civil space, and while they do need specialist plant equipment and training, these can be effectively phased in over time by adopting new technologies one at a time. So, for example, you might start with camera inspection equipment, build up to cured in place piping equipment, and moving on to more expensive things like micro tunnel boring machines. Our second opportunity was building information modelling for subcontractors. So we see that while general contractors have been early adopters of this technology for planning, managing, handing over projects, it's increasingly seen as a really important tool for subcontractors to interact with during the construction process. And there are two levels of competency. So the first is a really foundational understanding, which gives you the skills to understand with and interact with BIM models generated by others. So that could be finding information in the model, communicating through annotations, attaching documents, and using the 4D schedule to manage sequencing and logistics. And the next stage is more proactive use of BIM to enhance your internal processes. So that's where you're really engaging it in your own business, using it for estimating, guiding the fabrication processes, constructability evaluations, and scheduling and project management. So it applies across a range of construction subcontracting specialties, most relevant where those fields require detailed coordination and integration into broader project workflows, or those that involve complex installations or prefabrication. Really well aligned with areas with really good Māori and Pasifika ownership, mechanical, electrical, plumbing businesses, interior fit outs, structural engineering and steel fabrication, HVAC, civils, things like that. And there's two main ways that these skills will benefit Māori and Pasifika contractors. So first of all, it makes them more competitive and attractive for engagement on large complex projects. And then secondly, can improve their internal efficiencies, accuracy, and overall profitability. Our third opportunity here was commercial building energy retrofits. So we know that New Zealand's electricity grid is predominantly renewable, but what a lot of people don't know is that when we consider all our primary energy sources, including coal and gas for industrial processes, fossil fuels for space and water heating, actually around 60% of our energy supply comes from fossil fuels. So reducing our carbon footprint of our existing building stock is going to be key to meeting our emissions reductions targets. So the retrofitting of buildings, it typically involves modification of heating, cooling, lighting, structural, mechanical, and electrical work, all done to improve the energy performance of the building. This could include building automation and controls, things like smart sensors and software for energy management, building fabric upgrades, so the installation, windows and shading, HVAC upgrades, replacing gas water heaters with heat pump hot water systems is another really important step in that process. So on average, they estimate that a New Zealand building could be improved by 20 to 25%, which leads to significant savings for building owners. This makes it a great opportunity because it sits in that sweet spot of delivering environmental outcomes, but also long-term cost savings for building owners. Again, these skills really align to where we see existing Māori and Pasifika businesses and opportunity to upskill with just micro-credentials or maybe broadening your offer to envelop a few more of those skills. And finally, number 4, we had renewable consumer energy resources. So this is a collective term for devices that are owned and used by consumers to generate, store or manage electricity. Rooftop solar is obviously one of the most common due to its low installation cost, relatively low installation cost, the scalability and obviously the availability of sunlight, which is key to solar success. In New Zealand, the key drivers are protecting against rising electricity prices and increasing energy independence through reduced reliance on the grid. And we've seen this with some of the really severe weather events lately. People are really seeing the benefit of having a self-sufficiency in the energy state. We've had a bit of a shake-up in the New Zealand market, the collapse of Solar Zero obviously been a big moment for the industry, but the government is taking steps to reduce regulatory barriers and also enabling solar power systems to return more power to the grid, which is going to provide greater incentives for consumers going forward. We're also seeing the price of solar panels decreasing, so these are all positive signs for the industry, and we believe it should be an offering that electricians can and should be adding to their repertoire. The Amotai database showed that not enough of the electrical businesses are currently providing these services, so it really does highlight a significant opportunity to expand their offerings. We've also seen some great examples of iwi using solar panels to power marae infrastructure, and in some cases providing that excess energy at reduced or no cost to their communities. Really be great to see more Māori and Pasifika businesses involved in providing these services. So what I've shared is just a really brief overview. Again, I do encourage you to dive into the full report and take a look at the long list of opportunities when you can. So I'll pass back to Catherine.
Thanks so much, Esther. There was certainly a lot in that report, but some really exciting opportunities for Māori and Pasifika businesses working with Amotai and Poutama Trust. So I'm going to come to some questions for the panel now, and I'm going to go to Koro first. So just remember to unmute yourself there, Koro. And I've just lost my question, so when it comes back, I'll ask it. Great. So Koro, there's going to be a lot of Māori and Pasifika businesses online today. What's your advice for any business owners thinking about taking the next step and upskilling their workforce to take advantage of these opportunities?
Kia ora noa, Catherine. That's a really good partai, thinking about, what does this report, the insights mean from a practical perspective for a lot of the Māori and Pasifika businesses that are online today? So, the key thing about upskilling the workforce and taking advantage of the opportunities that Esther has just presented, I think the key one there is to target the 4 green construction pathways, as opposed to the other 50 odd that were initially explored as part of the research. But in a practical level, I think there's a couple of things that I want to share with you in terms of taking the next steps. I think number 1 is using the micro credentials that you can integrate into everyday work. So embedding micro credentials on the job. So that isn't about pulling your workforce off site or off the job. It's how you can integrate those micro credential courses like building information modeling, the BIM modeling, or the retrofit accreditations directly into the what we've described as the daily workflows of your business on site. So your workforce can learn as they work. That's efficient, that's practical, and it can stick. I think one of the other key points is building financial and business skills along the tech skills that are going to be required for the future. So upskilling isn't just about the technology, that's a key part of it. But the report insights suggest that the importance is to build business capability in both bidding strategy, financial modeling, cash flow management, and project leadership. So that might seem like a lot to do just to be at the starting gate. But there are some great partners out there that can help you build up those skills or point you in the right direction. Poutama would certainly encourage you to engage with us to have a kōrero about that, our colleagues at Amotai, and even Hype PM around some of those things there. I think another point that I want to share, Catherine, is around forming alliances to compete for bigger projects. Now, the Māori value that comes to mind is the idea of mahitahi, working together, collaborating and cooperating. The report insights show that Māori and Pasifika business scale faster when they collaborate, whether that's through joint ventures, sharing training, or teaming up for bigger tenders or bigger jobs. Through our connection, other Māori businesses or Pasifika businesses, that connection is strength. You should use that as your power. Now, who would be those that you could connect with for those opportunities? From a Māori perspective, it's engaging with iwi, hapu, and marae for some really pretty amazing opportunities in those construction pathways. Now, a great example of this is the Waikato Trades Collective. I'll just leave that there for you to kind of go away and do some research. But the Waikato Trades Collective is a collection of Māori businesses, obviously from the Waikato, of a good practical example of this. Just a couple of other things I want to share, Catherine, around, in terms of what to do next. I think making sure that you deliver training on site that is cultural and practical. So what do I mean by that? The training needs to be anchored in the way your people and your workforce culture. The qualitative data from the report, finds that on-site group-based training aligned with your workforce culture resonates strongly and will be really, really effective. And one of the other points I want to make is around grow your business tier and your mana in the sector. So the data shows that most Māori and Pasifika companies are tier 4, small, agile, but often locked out of the big contracts. So by investing in the 4 tech areas that we're shared via Esther, you can move up the tiers, tier 3 or higher, and being able to qualify for mid-tier and tier 1 opportunities. I think that's where the sweet spot is, or what a lot of Māori and Pasifika businesses should be aiming for. So just to recap, target those 4 green tech pathways, embed micro credentials into daily work, build your financial and bidding capability, collaborate with partners and peers, and deliver culturally centered on-site learning. Now, in particular, if you're a Māori business, Poutama Trust is here to support you so you can access these opportunities. So please get in contact with myself or one of my team that are based across Aotearoa. Back to you, Catherine.
Thanks so much, Koro. We're going to make contact details available, and obviously just a reminder that the webinar will be available both through Poutama or through Amotai and through ConCOVE's websites after today. And another reminder to pop your questions in the chat, so keep them coming through and we'll collect them up. And if it's the right time, I'll ask them in the conversation. If it's not, we'll leave them till the very end. So now I'm going to ask Anna a question. You obviously work with a lot of large construction and infrastructure organisations. What role do you see them playing in light of this research? How important are they? What, is the research relevant? What can they take out of it?
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, I start by recognising that moving to a greener construction practice is everyone's business, and I'm sure that Nick will talk a little bit more about that when we get to that space. Yeah, I was really keen to talk a little bit more about how Amotai is split into 2 things. We have big buyer organisations, and there are 200 of those that are a part of us, and a large number of those buyers are construction and infrastructure businesses. Your big ones that you'd see around building all of our housing, apartments and roads and all the things. And then on the other side, we have suppliers, which are Māori and Pasifika businesses that are 50% owned by a Māori and or Pasifika person. And I guess I want to focus my answer on the buyer side of this conversation. So buyers have by far more resource and opportunity to support these businesses into their supply chains. And I've seen this happen successfully a number of times, where a smaller Māori and or Pasifika business has gone to bid for work, and that's what Amotai does. We make that connection between Māori and Pasifika businesses and big buyer organisations that want to have a more local and resilient supply chain. They're looking to diversify that supply chain for those 2 things, but also because they're really interested in how they unlock the innovation and creativity that sits behind Māori and Pasifika businesses. And so often that happens at a Meet the Buyer event that we host across New Zealand. Māori and or Pasifika business will go along and meet with people that are in those procurement teams or their project managers that are looking for more suppliers to be a part of projects that they're delivering in that region. And it will start with a conversation just like this, a little bit more about what it is that they do. And often it will be taken then offline to more capability statements and the due diligence that happens as you're forming this relationship. But because it starts with a relationship and a conversation at the start, we're able to have a more human conversation about what it would take to enable a small business to be a part of a big project. And as a result of that, the procurement managers and the PMs in those big organisations are thinking about how they can unlock their health and safety support, how they can unlock their research and development support, how they can share their plant to enable that business to be successful on site. So I think it really is about how big business in New Zealand, if you are serious about unlocking that creativity and innovation and having local resilient supply chains, then it starts with conversations with smaller businesses. I also want to touch on what Koro spoke about in terms of those alliances. Yes, they are really important between Māori and Pasifika businesses. And also we've seen success when there are opportunities to partner with these big businesses themselves. And I know that Esther at Hype PM, they're looking at all sorts of different ways in which you can bring businesses together, both large and small, to contribute to projects across Aotearoa. I think I'll leave it there.
That's great, Anna. We've had a question come through, and I think now's the right time to ask it. But how do you get onto the Amotai preferred list to be considered for opportunities? It's a practical question that we can answer for the audience today.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really easy. Jump on the Amotai website, www.amotai.nz. There is a registration portal for suppliers, and there is a registration portal for buyers. The one thing that I would say about what we do in Amotai is we make that connection happen. But your business needs to be able to win that work yourself. All of the due diligence that is required of a business is still required here. So you are winning the work off merit, not because you're a Māori and or Pasifika business, but the opportunity that we have is to make that connection easier, because we've heard that access is the biggest challenge for Māori and Pasifika businesses in winning those larger contracts.
So you're walking alongside, really. Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks very much for taking that question. We're going to go to Nick now, and we're going to bring it right back up. And Nick, just thinking, what's your sector perspective? Are you seeing these technologies being used in the sector? And if so, how broadly?
We are seeing these technologies adopted across the areas that Esther has outlined, and it's good to go into a little bit of detail there. But if you think about the building information modelling, the BIM, there's specific use for that in businesses of all in all sectors of the industry, and also all sizes. At a very high level, you're seeing, the use of digital twins, asset management platforms, underground asset management understanding, and those are they're growing. There's been particular advancements. I know that as Minister of Infrastructure, Chris Bishop gets quite excited about underground mapping and the access for not just public utilities, but actually for private sector to engage with those technologies and use them in their everyday work. I think that if you look at, for instance, NZTA, Waka Kotahi, they're very much in that space. And when you look at the Takatimu North Link Road and Transmission Gully, they're two good examples where those have been used. The Auckland City Rail Link is using digital twins and advanced design coordination tools to manage their construction and what are quite delicate urban environments. So at a very high level, that's happening. I guess what we want to see is the engagement of that technology by small and medium-sized businesses. That's when we know we've got real success, and then that becomes the cost to invest in that, the added requirement to train staff. It's why some of those, if you think about whether it's either training or credentialing team members progressively, and those coming into the industry is really, really important. Thinking about other of some of those other topics, automation and robotics is quite a big part. I mean, if you look at the work that is being done in the ports of Auckland, they've got the automated straddle carriers, and those are amongst the most advanced robotics in New Zealand. It's growing across the logistics sector, but like everything, it's constrained by cost and training gaps, and also legacy systems as well. Thinking about sort of other points that I think that have been made around trenchless technologies. Lots of that happening amongst those big procurers of work. So Watercare in Auckland, Wellington Water, Christchurch City Council, and some of those big private contractors. I mean, I actually had a drain layer recently come and do some work at my house, and they had to dig down, but it wasn't the same level of excavation because they were able to push the new pipe through. Now, that's being adopted on the ground, but once again in parts, and the benefits are obvious. I mean, not only does it lower carbon footprint in excavation heavy jobs, but it also protects sensitive environments. So it's also about getting those small and medium-sized businesses again to connect up, and where they're working as subcontractors, or they're actually going out and doing their own work. Commercial building and energy retrofits. Obviously, there's a lot of co-funding available for this still. We've got to complete that work in our existing housing stock, and that's things like insulation, it's LED lighting, it's heat pumps. There's also retrofitting civic buildings around the nation, and hospital upgrades, which I think we'll see more of an emphasis on from Health New Zealand as we come through. And the installation of renewable energy resources is also very important. Looking locally in Porirua, there's a new Pacific housing development that's specifically to bring Pacifica families into home ownership. They've got an 18-house development. They've put in the solar to be able to supplement the power bills of those 18 ainga there. That's the kind of adaptation that we want to see. And it is local firms that are doing that on the ground, small local businesses that are actually able to do a lot of that work. And around the country with schools in Marae, a lot of solar rollout supported by government and private investment, and that's there is so much work in that, in the what we'd say the non-traditional but becoming traditional energy sources, both in on site, but also to new energy sources. If we think about solar and wind. Much to talk about there. What I would say in sort of as I sum that up, is that while we're seeing big signs of progress across those 4 opportunity areas, it is around also that client side driver. So who, if we're thinking about local government, central government agencies, they've got to have the pipeline so they can be really consistent in driving new technology and new behaviours, and bringing along the people that are doing the work for them. And that confidence and that change happens over time, and we're still too much in the start-stop with a lot of this work. Water has been mentioned. I mean, it's been very difficult time in the industry for contractors and subcontractors. So to get the kind of evolution and progress we need, getting that pipeline across the nation in different sectors of infrastructure is still the most important thing in the very short term. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Nick. I'm going to come back to you with a question. You touched on training and skills gaps. And so the question really is around, what do you see happening in the wider sector, policy and education, to support things like digital education or broader uptake of technology? Where are we at, do you think?
the same problem that we face in infrastructure where it comes to getting that pipeline agreed, and you need a settled system to do that. And if you look at the lurching that's occurred in vocational education, it makes it very difficult to settle on the kind of policy prescription that's required. So I would credit those of you in that space for doing the very best that you can with what you've been given. And there are really good green shoots, but I would say for a lot in the large contractors that and others that build infrastructure that are members of Infrastructure New Zealand, that they often have to build their in-house systems and their in-house training. And I think that's a challenge, because actually we need to open up to a whole new workforce of people, as identified in this report. Many of them are obviously in the industry at the moment, but they're going to become a greater number of the workforce and of the population. And I don't see a system that's catering for that particularly well. And I do think it's actually working with the small and medium and large businesses in the industry that are actually bringing on Māori and Pasifika workforce now successfully, and utilising what works well and the different approaches, the different support and collective approaches that work to bring those forces online and who are successfully included in the industry. It's developing policy settings that are adjacent and related to that, rather than a system going off and designing itself for itself. It's actually about working with the people that are already doing it well. So I think, despite the turmoil and the upset, we've got a real opportunity to do that, and I hope we take it.
Great, thanks, Nick. It was really nice. We do have some questions coming in through the chat, so I'm going to pick out a couple of those to start with. We had one come through from Raymond. Thanks, Raymond. Most Māori supply chain partnerships with buyers are based in large centres like Auckland. How do regional Māori businesses in the regions of the South Island, for example, get an audience with larger buyers? Probably over to you, Anna, and maybe you, Koro?
Koro, did you want to tackle that first, and I can...
Yeah, kia ora. Great pātai, Raymond. I was going to suggest that you definitely keep an eye out for the buyers events that take place that organised by Amotai across the South Island. And I know there's a couple that have happened recently, and there's always events to look forward to in the future. Look, get in touch with ourselves or with Amotai. You know, there are very active Māori business networks across the rohi, Te Waipounamu, so we can point you in the right directions around, you know, what might be some of the right pathways to get in front of some of the big buyers. So don't hesitate to reach out. And I just want to emphasize, there are a lot of opportunities. I was just speaking yesterday of some of the potential procurement opportunities that are in Southland. We know, for example, there's a new hospital that's been built in Dunedin, and there's a lot of opportunities that have come online, and no doubt there will be more. So please reach out, get in touch, so we can point you in the right direction. We can keep you informed. We can make some introductions. Kia ora.
Great, thank you. I think it's not being afraid of collaborating either, right? So you don't lose anything by putting yourself out there and partnering with others to perhaps take up some of these opportunities. Anna, any thoughts?
Look, I just want to acknowledge, Raymond, that I know that the city centres are where a lot of the work happens, and then it kind of crashes and burns as you go further across the regions. But it is a real opportunity to utilise the Amotai directory to connect with regionally based staff that are a part of those big buyer organisations that are working in your region. So yes, what Koro was saying in terms of the meet the buyer connection, but also there are lots of different avenues through the directory that you can connect individually with the different buyer organisations that are part of Amotai and completing work in their region, like CPB, who is delivering the Dunedin Hospital, who are planning to set targets, spend with Māori and Pasifika businesses.
Great, thanks, Anna. We've got a couple of very specific training questions here. They're closely related, so I'm going to see if I can blend them together. With the non-NZQA micro-credentials, will this just be a digital badge like Project Kuna, or how will the work-based learning be monitored from beginning to end, and will training organisations be involved, or the new ISBs? Any thoughts around that?
Look, I think it's probably all of the above. But maybe we could, as an action from this useful webinar, we can probably come back and provide some written responses to that good question. Don't want to lead people astray, but I'm hopeful it's all of the above that's just been mentioned in the question.
Fantastic. We know at ConCOVE that qualification development and design, even just for a micro-credential, takes a lot of time. We'd like for that process to go a lot faster, but there are ways that you can start to develop off framework programs that actually support development and learning in the space. So we would definitely encourage industry to be doing that, whilst the system kind of chases its tail to catch up. And perhaps with the development or the coming on stream of the new industry skills boards, there will be a specific infrastructure ISB, for example, but also we will have one in construction and one in electrotechnology and IT. So we are going to see potentially more opportunity across those three to actually explore some of these unique opportunities and unique skill sets that are going to be required for future skills.
Yeah, and I would just say, to add on to that we know that they're really needed, and that we are able to facilitate conversations between the right partners to enable Māori and Pasifika businesses to be at the forefront of the development of those, whether it be to test them, to develop them, or work in partnership with others to create the right types of training opportunities.
Yeah. And there's some great examples in the sector already of non-framework based qualifications and micro-credentials or micro-credential adjacent micro-credentials. I can't remember the specific term, but there are examples. So it does work, and you should definitely take advantage of those opportunities. I've got one final question for the group, which is really around the intersection of the cultural, environmental and social outcomes that we're seeing in the work that Esther has done with Hype PM. What excites your organisation about this potential? Esther, I'm going to come to you first because you did the work. What excites your organisation about the potential here?
I think when you find that something that is coming from the heart and something that's genuine, and we know with Māori and Pasifika businesses, as you said, Anna, these are core values that are not just written on a poster in your lunchroom. These are really core values for Māori and Pasifika businesses often. So it's just a natural part of the work that we're doing. So when we can harness these into really exciting business opportunities that have that commercial payback as well, while also providing those cultural, environmental, social benefits, it's just win-win, and it's a no-brainer. So yeah, I get really excited by this.
Fantastic. Nick, any thoughts? What excites Infrastructure New Zealand about these opportunities?
I think it's the exciting part is that I think a lot of the industry are very much in the space. They're thinking in the space, but the exciting part is actually developing the practical. How do we start practicing what we preach? And I guess it's the learning that's going to be required by reaching across into the unknown for a lot of businesses. And I say that that's an opportunity and it's exciting, and it might be a bit scary for some people, but it is those values, as Esther just said, it's those values that I think often we mime, but we don't necessarily practice. And I think taking these values not just into our workplace, but into our work, when we're actually on site, how are we considering the environment? How are we considering our practices are actually minimising impact? And how is the way that we that we care for our staff, not just pay them and train them, but how do we care for them? How do we look after them in their totality? These concepts I think are evolving in this country. And I do think that a lot of the learning for perhaps larger businesses is going to come from the smaller companies that they contract. And so there's going to be some really good sharing, and it's our job, I think, to welcome that. And I think in the report it sort of talks about it's not about diversity, it's actually now about inclusion and belonging, and how do we make a place for everybody that works in any part of the infrastructure industry in a way that they can come and be part in the present, not just the future.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Koro, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking of the Māori and Pasifika businesses that already see this as part of their future. I guess the insights from the report are validating. For those that are joining us and trying to understand what their business future looks like, with all the opportunities that are out there, this might kind of help focus your view on the things that you could potentially focus on that are going to be of high value and going to be really meaningful from a work perspective. Overall, put those two things together, I'm really excited for Māori businesses to make the most of these opportunities and to see a real step change. So if you're a tier 4 business, you become a tier 3. If you're a tier 3, you become a tier 2. Tier 2, you become a tier 1. But using the insights from this report to really help grow, sustain, and focus your business. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Koro. And Anna?
I've been reflecting lots on what types of changes have, in terms of emerging trends, have happened in the infrastructure and construction space. And one that really stands out for me is deconstruction, particularly in commercial building spaces, and how over a very short period of time, there's been a significant behaviour change in the way in which we manage commercial waste. And that has such an incredible environmental impact by reducing the amount of waste that we are sending to landfill by tonnes. And the Kāinga Ora 3 or 4 years ago, creating a panel for deconstruction and having a criteria in that to become a panel member of 85% reduction of waste from those commercial sites is just amazing to see. And that, I think, is one of the examples of that intersection between commercial, environmental, economic, social and cultural that we can see, because many of the businesses that are a part of Amotai were pioneers in the space, and we're reusing a lot of the waste that was coming from those building sites, distributing them across community, giving those products a second life, and that also contributing to the fabric of our society. And that, I think, is talking to what Nick was saying in terms of, and you were saying, Esther, in terms of bringing to life the values. When we are able to demonstrate that product and service from those waste spaces going back into our communities and having a second life, and that actually contributes to those connections between people in our communities, that is the essence of what Amotai stands for. That, I think, is what is at the foundation of the Māori and Pasifika economy.
Wow, really nicely said. Thanks, Anna. We're almost out of time. In fact, I think we are pretty much out of time. I do want to acknowledge, Stan, thank you for your comment on pipeline. Nick did talk to that a little bit earlier on, and so please do jump back into the webinar recording and have a look at Nick's response there. Celia had a last question around policy implications from the report, and is there going to need to be any policy settings or support measures put in place to better enable Māori and Pasifika businesses to take advantage of these opportunities? I just wonder, we might quickly go to you on that, Anna, and then we'll see if we can slip one more in. If not, we might just stay behind and record it for you. Anna?
Just off the top of my head, I do think that we need to be thinking about labour market interventions and what those look like and how they are supporting the findings from the research. There's also some stuff around investment in the space and how that's unlocked to enable businesses to do the R&D and to buy the plant and scale up.
Invest in the training.
Yep. Invest in the training as well, yes. And I do also think that there is something on the buyer side, so those big, large businesses and how that policy plays a role in supporting them to do more in the space.
Yeah, great, thank you. And one more question, we're sneaking it in from Hana. Kia orana, Hana says, thank you for sharing valuable green technology insights and opportunities for Māori and Pacific businesses. Like Poutama, what role do business entities like the Pacific Business Trust, Pacific Village, Chamber of Commerce, economic development players play in profiling and engaging those in these emerging business pathways? I guess it talks to the infrastructure that's around and the opportunities for businesses to engage with support networks. Any thoughts, Anna or you, Koro?
Kia ora. Yeah, let me take a response to Hana's really great pātai. And good question. I've always described for Poutama that we're part of the village, and there are other members of the village or entities that can help support businesses. So without a doubt, I think you've listed here a number that you should get in touch with, about pointing in the right direction, or advising what type of assistance and support are available, either through them or through some of their partners, or the assistance and support or the insights that might be available from others, third parties like Hype PM, or even from government. So it takes a village. There's typically not one source of truth. Normally you have to knock on a few doors in the village to try and find the insights or the opportunities that you're after. But I think who we have here, we have Poutama, we've got ConCOVE, and we've got Height PM and Amotai. I think we've got a good starting point here. So Hana, don't hesitate to reach out to one of our entities as a good starting point, and we can point you in the right direction. And that goes for all the other Māori and Pasifika businesses that have joined us today. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Koro. Anna, any thoughts?
Just that it's a vibrant, amazing business ecosystem. And that we are partners with all of those organisations, including Infrastructure New Zealand. And we're really glad that you're here, Nick.
Yeah. Nick, did you have any thoughts on how Infrastructure New Zealand can offer support?
I have thought about that quite a lot, actually. Funnily enough, we are an advocacy body. Primarily, and that's not just advocacy on behalf of the industry, but advocacy back into the industry. And I think that's where a lot of this report lands for me. It's around elevating Māori and Pasifika participation within the industry, thinking about the workforce strategy that needs to be in place for businesses, and to really amplify that mahi, we need to work with those groups that have been outlined, and we do actually in terms of Pacific Business Trust and obviously other business groups. But I do think there are some exciting partnerships with that we can also engage with those of you doing the work with Māori and Pasifika, small and medium and large businesses who need to be at the table for a lot of these policy discussions, because there's that old thing about if you're not at the table, you're not on the menu, and I do think that's lacking a lot in our industry at the moment. So that's the challenge to self.
Great, thanks, Nick. And I'm just going to pop another table participant out there. We need the education sector sitting alongside some of these conversations, because, as I said earlier, it does take far too long, and it's can be a very complex process to formalise qualifications in this space. So any time that we can involve education early in these conversations, I think please make sure that you do so. Little shout out from ConCOVE. Okay, we're going to wrap up, and thank you very much for your insights, everybody. Today, special thanks to Esther for coming along and talking us through the research. Thank you very much for participating. And I'm going to ask Anna to close out the webinar in karakia just as we begin. Thanks, Anna.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou, me karakia tātou. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapu nui, kia wātea, kia māma, te nākau, te tinana, te wairoa i te ara takatā. Ko ia rā e rongo, whakairi ake ki runga kia tīna.
Tina.
Haumi e hui e
Tai.
tahi.
Ai ki e.
Ka kite, enjoy your day.